I see something, but I can't make out what it is. So I'm like, all right, that's definitely not a deer, but it's bigger than a deer. I don't know what that is. So I opened up the window, and when I did, it made a sound. And the thing reacted to the sound. It crouched down like bow-legged on all fours, and it moved so quick. But when it like crouched down, it let out this double growl, like two voices at once, like one really, really deep one and one very high-pitched.
This is the Cryptic Creatures Podcast. I am Brian, and with me, as always, is my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, man. What are you up to these days? What's going on with you?
Same old. All I do is work and
look forward to spring for some squatching adventures.
Right.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
Right around the corner. Yeah, it's been nice the last couple of days.
We've got to book that Crypticon here soon. I forgot about that. We're gonna hit the Crypticon up this year, and
gotta get that going.
The Mothman down in Point Pleasant. Was that September?
I saw the thing on Facebook that said it was back this year, so hopefully we can get in on that too. That'd be fun.
Yeah, will be. So, got a question for you, Brian. What are you thinking about this whole Dogman thing?
Man, it's the Dogman is pretty new to me. It could be just a regular, mutated wolf of some kind,
right?
Or maybe it is more along the supernatural, paranormal, skinwalker creature. I don't know.
Right. As we're going along here, we're doing a few more Dogman episodes, and we have another one tonight.
Yep.
So they're coming more common these days, which I'm kind of wondering what's going on with these things.
Yeah, they're seeing them more and more. It's interesting. I'm very interested in it for sure.
Well, we'll talk to Crystal tonight, who's had several Dogman encounters and seen and know some
relatively
people.
Close too.
We'll see what she's got to say and listen to her stories. You ready?
Let's get her.
Here we go.
Hello. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for coming on and talking to us, Crystal.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, where are you located, or what state are you in right now?
So I'm in Rhode Island, located in New England.
And you had a couple different encounters in your past. Where did those happen? One
was in my parking lot to where I live. The other one was right up the road in the next town over on the Barrington-Seekonk-Swansea line for Massachusetts.
Okay.
Right over there. And then the other one was right down the road from my house as well, but just as it hits the next town over into Barrington.
Okay. So once you take us into your first encounter, what was going on, and then what happened and what you did, what you saw.
Okay. So a few years ago, like 2011, my friend and I were driving down these back roads. So it's in a section where it's all farmland. There's like a famous farm over there called Four Town Farm, and it's all these beautiful rolling areas of woods. So we're driving, and she had this Chevy Trailblazer, her parents' car. And the road is very, very narrow, especially for that car. So as we're going, a coyote runs out into the middle of the road. So it runs out, and its ears are back, its tail's between its legs, its fur's on end, and it's staring behind it into the woods. So we get up closer to it. The coyote's not moving. It's not, like, even responding to us, like, creeping up to it. So we're like, okay, we have to wait for the coyote to move, but we didn't want to beep because it was so late. So we're kind of sitting there waiting, and the coyote kind of moves off to the side. So we're watching it because I'm like, that coyote's acting like it's scared of something, the way it's like the ears back and everything like that. So as we're driving away, she's looking in the rearview mirror, and I'm looking in the passenger mirror. And we see this huge, big, look like at the time we're like, it's a werewolf running like wicked awkward behind the car. The back end of it hit to where the rear window is in the Trailblazer, and it ran across the road diagonal and into the woods. So when that happened, I started freaking out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, did you just see that? What was that? So we turned the car around and try to shine the high beams into the woods that it went into. And I lean out the car, of course, trying to look at it more. My friend pulls me back in, and we're looking, but we could hear it already like bounding away, and it was huge. And it made like a big path through like all like the bamboo, like greenery stuff. Mm-hmm. And then as we're turning around again, a guy comes running out of his house with like a bathrobe and a flashlight. This was like 2 a.m. ish. And he comes out and he's like, did you girls just see what that was? And we're like, yeah, what was it? And he's like, I don't know, but I have a small dog. So he like ran into the back to check up on his dog. But whatever it was enough to scare that coyote. The thing was really, really, really big. And the way it ran was awkward. And you know how like coyotes kind of like do that loping walk where they kind of drift? This thing ran like a human would, but on all fours.
Okay. What exactly do you remember seeing? I know it was dark. You were looking through a mirror, but any kind of detail that you could give us about what you did?
Yeah. So there's a street light that's like a little ways back. So it's kind of illuminated from it. I saw the snout first, and it was like a wicked long snout. So, because seeing the size of it, I was like, oh my gosh, is that a bear? Like running out because it was so bulky. But my father's a hunter. So, like, I know what bears, we have one in the living room. Well, not in my house, in his house. But, like, looking at the snout and the way the ears were, they were, like, right on top of the head. They were very, very pointy. And a really, really long, bushy tail. Like, very long that trailed out behind it. And you could see, like, the shoulders and the way it ran. Because it just ran awkward diagonal behind the car. And something that to reach the back window of a Chevy Blazer, it's a lot bigger than the coyotes that we have around here. Even though we have big ones.
I would say that's way bigger than a wolf would be too.
Yeah.
The back end of a Trailblazer, where you could see it through the glass of the Trailblazer tailgate.
The back end of it, like the parts of like the very, very tip where the shoulders are in the back.
Yeah.
You can see that through the window.
So that's
pretty big.
4.5. That's 4 feet tall.
And I'm 4'10", so that freaked me out.
Yeah. Yeah.
4'10".
I'm just guessing, but the Trailblazers back in the day, where that window was, that's at least 4 feet up off the ground.
Yeah.
I would think.
Oh yeah.
What happened after that? What did you guys do?
So me, I've always been a believer in all these kinds of things. So that's why I was kind of like, all right, if I tell people about this, to be like, because you want to see this kind of stuff. That's why you think you saw something like this. But my other friend who saw it with me that first time, she's very Spock, very logical, very skeptic. And she was freaked out. Very freaked out. I didn't have a personal experience with her, but her brother ended up having it when we were all at the house. That's how we figured out more people had seen it. It chased him to the door of the house. And then when her dad went to go look outside because her brother was banging on the door, he was just like, you gotta let me in, you gotta let me in. And the father jumped and he was like, what is that? And he was like crying and shaking. And he was saying like it was this huge dog man that was chasing him. And it scared her so much her mom didn't want to go back outside. But her and I never told anyone else about it. Because everyone was like, yeah, okay, sure, you've seen that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So her brother got chased by this thing? Your friend's brother got chased by this thing? He was what, playing out in the woods or something? And this thing came after him? Do you know what the story was on that?
Yeah, so where they live in another part of Rhode Island, Warren, which isn't that far from where I live. And he was walking to a store. So there's all houses everywhere. There's not even like woods. There's just a park and there's like a little patch of woods behind it, but there's all houses over there. Wow. So as he was coming back from Cumbies, like he saw a guy standing over in that section and the guy kept freaking him out. So he kept just looking back. But then after a while of him looking back, he still felt like he was being watched. So he said that this big black creature just started running after him. And as they turned onto the street, because it was a dead end, he just started banging on the door for someone to let him in. And then when her father pulled back the curtain, he like jumped and he was like, whoa, you know, and Amber and I were sitting at the table and we were just kind of like, what the heck's going on? And our friend that was there, that's when, before Amber and I even said anything, he started describing the same exact thing that we saw and asking the brother if it was the same thing. So my friend and I look at each other like, how do you guys know about this thing? How often is this thing seen? And he told us our story, which actually happened right down the road from my house, even though he wasn't with me.
And what was that? What was his story?
So for our friends, there's a beach. I live all by ocean for where I live. And there's a beach down the road with like a playground and some grass. And him and his friend were hanging out there like later on at night. And they heard like splashing in the water. And it wasn't like the waves crashing in. So they're like, what the heck is that? So they're kind of like creeping. And they see, he described it as a 6-foot long version of his dog, Bo. I'm not sure what kind of dog his breed is. But he's like kind of shaggy looking. And it was in the water. And it was crouched down. And it was either like digging at something or trying to like open something. but it was kind of like hunched over. And it had like big long claws and things like that. So they kind of looked at each other and just started to back away. But it was like growling to itself, like making like dog noises, like the rah, rah, rah. So they were like, okay, let's get out of here. And they left. And that was right down the road. And he had never told us about it until what happened with Amber's brother.
Wow.
Was this all in the same kind of time frame as far as a couple years together, or was it kind of spread out? What kind of time frame would you?
Yeah, it was very spread out. So with my first encounter, it was 2011. With my friend's encounter, I want to say it was 2012, 2013. I don't want to put an exact year on it. And then for Amber's brother, it happened in 2014. And then when I caught it in my parking lot, it was 2015.
And is that the second encounter that you had in your parking lot? Was that the second time you saw it?
Yeah, and that was the longest one.
Okay. Why don't you explain that one to us? Tell us what happened there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a friend over, and we were sitting outside. I have all cement walkways through everywhere, and I have lots of woods, and I have lots of coyotes and deer and animals. So we're outside, and we kept hearing like nails clicking on concrete, but we couldn't see where it was coming from, and I didn't want to get too close because, coyotes are everywhere. So my friend got a little uneasy, so we went back inside. I have a chair next to my window. It's actually still there because I don't change my decorating. But anyway, she was over there by the chair, and then she jumped up, and she's like, oh my gosh, something just went behind that car. So I'm so used to wildlife everywhere. I'm just kind of like, okay, it was probably a deer or a coyote. And she's like, no, it's huge. It's huge. You got to look at it. You got to look at it. So I'm not thinking anything of it. And I go and I look from the window that she's looking at. And there's like a little grass island with a street light that's right next to my dumpster. And there's one of my neighbor's cars were parked right over here. And I'm looking out the window and I see something, but I can't make out what it is. So I'm like, all right, that's definitely not a deer, but it's bigger than a deer. I don't know what that is. So I go to my second window. I had lights all over it, so I couldn't see through the glass. So I opened up the window, and when I did, it made a sound. And the thing reacted to the sound. It crouched down like bow-legged on all fours, and it moved so quick. I thought it was like a naked drunk guy walking around my apartment, to be completely honest with the way it moved. And I was just like, but when it crouched down, it let out this double growl, like two voices at once, like one really, really deep one and one very high pitched. Like when you're sick, when sometimes you have that phlegm in your throat and it makes like an awkward sound as you're trying to talk. It was like that, but amplified. Wow. So as that's happening, I'm freaking out because I'm like, oh my God, this looks like the same exact thing that me and my friend seen. Oh my God. So we were taking turns watching it from the window because I didn't want to take my eyes off of it because my whole parking lot's surrounded by lights everywhere. There's little street lights for all the corners. So we're taking turns because if we're staring at it for too long, I felt like we would lose it. And I'm trying to record it on my phone. I had my phone propped up. I was trying to take pictures, but my phone was dying. So I'm like, I don't know if I can get it because it's so far. And I'm on the second floor. But I kept doing this really weird thing where it would stand up and its hands would curl under itself like this as it would stand up. Like it didn't push. It just was and it would stand up and it just kept putting one hand up and then just slowly putting it down. And I don't know why it was doing that. It was so weird. I remember saying to my friend, I was like, I'm going to wave back at it. And she's like, no, don't do it. But you could see the eye shine. Like I said, my apartment's on the second floor, and it's almost halfway across my parking lot. So as it would turn its head, you would see red, orangey eye shine. And then as it got closer, to look towards us again, it would turn that yellow green. And then it would go away. And then as it turned its head again, it would hit that red, orange eye shine. And you could see it from the window. Yeah. So we kept watching it and kept watching it. It was right next to one of my neighbor's apartments. So he worked maintenance here. And 6:30, his lights were on like clockwork. So I'm like, okay, I'll wait for my neighbor to wake up because his windows are always open. And he's kind of really nosy. So if I scream, someone's going to check out and I'm going to be okay. The lighter it got as the sun started to rise, the harder it was to see it, which was weird. we could still hear it scrambling, and you would see it kind of like shrinking down behind the car. It wasn't like standing up anymore or like doing the hand thing. When it got lighter, it just kept like going underneath the car more and more in like that grass area, but there was nowhere for it to go for us not to see it. So finally, like, okay, I'm going to go out there. You stay up here, because when I'm on the ground, I can't even see over a car. So I need you to tell me if it moves, because I'm not going to be able to see. So I took like a big lighter to put in my hand to make it more solid, because that's going to do something.
Right.
And I creeped along my side of the parking lot, and then I just jumped to that open area of where it is. And there was nothing there. So I get over there, and I get closer, and I see like a bush, like part of a tree standing over there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we were staring at a bush all night. I'm done. I'm going to bed. And she was like, no, you seen it. It was a real thing. So I'm like, no, it was a bush. We've been up all night. I'm going to bed. So the next morning when we get up, my friend wakes me up, and she's like, there's bones and there's fur over there. There was definitely something over there. There's like marks in the ground. So I'm like, fine, whatever. I go look it out. There are some bones that look like it was dragged from like the dumpster, and there are weird tufts of fur. But I'm like, again, it was the branch. So then after she leaves, I'm in my window and I'm looking outside, because I never once moved the branch. And I'm like, I can't see the branch from my window at all. So I kept going back and forth from inside to outside, trying to stick the branch in the ground, trying to see if the wind would move it all these different ways, like trying to like prop it up against stuff. And no matter what I did, I couldn't recreate from what I was seeing using the branch. So then I started to freak out and be like, okay, no, that totally was something. That totally was something, because now there's stuff there that wasn't there before, but like that makes no sense. What did I see? I had told my girlfriends, I was like, you need to come over. I had the weirdest night. I got to tell you all about it. I didn't tell her a single thing about it. And she comes up, she gives me my coffee, and she's like, hey, why do you have a ring of fur outside your door? Again, I didn't tell her anything that had happened. So I'm like, what do you mean? I run outside. I'm expecting to see like a fairy ring, like a circle of ring. But there was a ring that you would actually wear that was made out of fur, and it had like little bits of skin in it, and it was twisted. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, is this faux fur? Is this like dryer lint? And I'm like, no, this is real fur, because faux fur has that mat that it gets with it when it gets wet and everything else like that with the weather. And it had like skin, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. She took it. I still have a picture of it though, because I could send that one to you guys.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We
We ended up finding weird footprints in my woods, like this back area. So we found like all these weird footprints, and we were trying to find them, and it ended up leading out to someone's house. But a whole bunch of trees were like very, very scraped up, not like deer marks or like the bear, like bite and claw marks that they do. It was like something used it as a scratching post, and there was like a homemade tree stand of a whole trunk of a tree that was cut somewhere and lifted up and put into the tree. And you could see like my apartment in the parking lot from it. And as we're staring up, a tuft of the same fur that was on the bush and that matched the ring fell down. And we're like, we got to get up. We never found a way to get up there, though.
Sounds like you have a dogman stalker.
Something's going on. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
You mentioned hands. Did you notice that it had hands, not paws?
So it looked very elongated with claws. Like, you know those plastic witch fingers that you get like around Halloween time? Like picture that on like someone's hands, but with paws at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep, sure does.
Yep, and it scares me at the same time. Yep.
Yeah.
Did you notice any details of this thing's head, face?
For the parking lot one, the thing that scared me the most was the eyes. For me to see like how big the eyes are, not just the glare from the eye shine, but just how big the eyes are from that far away. I was like, okay, this thing already has like a huge head, and like you could see the shoulders, you could see the chest of it. It looked jacked, but it had kind of like a narrow waist, but not like hourglass figure, obviously. It like tapered down a little bit, but not a crazy lot. And the way the legs were, it was like that like the dog haunch, I think that's what it's called.
The backward style?
Yeah, like that.
Like a dog's back legs, typical back legs. Okay. What do you think it was doing when it was raising its one? Was it doing different hands or the same hand up in the air?
it seemed like it was the same hand from the angle that I was looking at it. It would just raise it up and then just slowly put it back down. It wasn't going like this or like throwing peace signs. It was just sticking it straight up and then down. And then like after a while, it'd look back around again or get back down, or it would stand up or like move over a little bit, but it just stayed in that grassy area.
I can't think of any reason why any creature would do that unless it was trying to feel which way the wind was blowing, or it was alerting its buddies, hand signals of what was going on at the time.
Did you notice? Did he have anything in his hand? Could you tell from that distance?
It didn't look like it. It just, I didn't even think about wind signals.
So you go out there to try to jump out and catch this thing off guard? You had
and be dessert for him, or what?
Yeah, you weren't afraid at all to do this, or were you?
No,
crazy?
I was terrified. But I wanted to know what it was. It was like, this is the same exact thing that my friend Amber and I seen. Is this a real person, or is this someone like trying to get their jollies off by dressing up as something? Because like I'm not sleeping because of this, and I need my sleep. I'm tired. I've been up all night. So when I was out there doing like the whole thing, the whole entire time, I was just like trying to pump myself up before I did like the with the giant lighter, trying to make my fist solid. Like I said, my father's a hunter, so like I do have my fair share of protection in my house that I have access to, and instead I grabbed a lighter.
So I've got a question. Do you have any wildlife refuge or a big national forest or any kind of woods around that area?
There's a lot of nature paths and like little preserves, but nothing big. We've done investigations in my woods before. My woods are very tiny. They're not that big at all, but they're right next to the bike path.
So you said you had you've had a third incident encounter?
Yeah, I call it like the third or like the half because it was like a split second encounter. So right down the street from my house, there's like a little island that you go around that's filled with very, very thick trees. And it's kind of dark in that area. So my boyfriend at the time and I were driving, and you have to go around the island. So as you do, your headlights illuminate everything. So as we're going, he's again very, very logic skeptic, won't believe anything until like he sees it. We see, as his headlights are coming around illuminating it, the same creature stand up with the same motion. And you see like the tail just kind of like go. And it like turned to look at us as we were just staring at it doing the turn. And he starts freaking out, and I start freaking out. And he's like, what is that? What is that? Is that the thing? And I'm like, turn around, turn around. So we go around the island again, and it was gone. It wasn't there anymore. But again, it's a very tiny island, but there's a lot of trees. But it's surrounded by roads and houses and stores. There's a plaza right there. So it's very out of place.
There's ponds or rivers or creeks or anything around that area?
Yeah, so I live right next to the bay. So I have all ocean, like salt water around me. But in my backyard where the woods are, it kind of opens up into like brackish, like the pond. And it goes kind of like a little peninsula for the islands, and then it surrounds the rest of the bike path in that area. Again, it's just weird because it's a very, very tiny sections of woods because, like I said, we've done investigations back there.
How big were those prints that you were talking about that you saw?
About as big as my hand.
Okay.
I have the pictures of that too. You have like my hand for a comparison. At first I thought they were displaced rocks because of the way the indent is with the leaves, but there was a whole like trail of them. So unless someone had put all these rocks there and then afterwards moved them all, to me it doesn't make sense.
What kind of wildlife do you have up there in Rhode Island where you're at?
We do have bears, but they're not very common in my area of it. But we have tons of deer. We're overrun with eastern coyotes. They're bigger than average coyotes. They have a wolfish appearance. Tons of foxes, squirrels, fisher cats. Nothing like that big as what.
Nothing big.
Yeah, the biggest thing would be like a full-grown buck in rut or the black bear that we do have, but like, again, they're not Targaryen, they don't fit the description at.
Well, that's interesting.
Have you seen a bear around your woods, around your neighborhood?
Not in my area personally. I've only seen the pictures that people have caught. So normally, if like I'm in an area and I see markings from a bear, I don't even go in there. I'm just like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not going to risk that. I'm the size of a child, so.
Right. Has there been anything else around that area or where you're at, and even in your county, about other sightings of other things, like maybe Bigfoot or anything like that?
Well, apparently there's been a lot more sightings of the same thing that I've seen. So a while back, I had put a Facebook status after I'd seen it in my parking lot, wondering if people had seen anything. I didn't go into details, like, has anybody seen anything weird? So where I live, from my area, my woods have a very weird feeling and vibe to them. There's been a few deaths in there, sadly. It's known as Rhode Island Suicide Forest.
Oh, that's nice.
And there was also a great fire that also took some lives in my area, too. And I'm all on Native American land. I live off of the Wampanoag Trail.
Wow, so you got some... you probably got some haunting action going on out there too. Yeah,
actually, one of the investigations we did, we had it was Stacy Brown, Bill Brock, and Brian Kano with like Carl Johnson in my paranormal group, and it turned kind of like from cryptid to paranormal with things that were happening, like with the spirit box and thermal abnormalities and whatnot, and like weird mists and things like that. So it's a weird area, and it's right in my backyard.
How did you get Stacy Brown to come up there?
Oh, okay.
I think it was Carl who let them know about the case, because I found out everybody was coming like after. It was already set in stone. So it was kind of like, I gotta clean my house. All these people are coming.
Right.
So I kind of found out after the fact. I wasn't the one who contacted them.
Have you heard any weird screams or yells or howls around that area, around, why this was going on?
So I have, like I said, a lot of wildlife. Fisher cats make a very weird sound at night. They sound kind of like a baby crying or a woman screaming. But if you've heard a Fisher cat, you know what a Fisher cat sounds like. Coyotes yipping and stuff like that, that's common. Foxes barking, it's kind of an unnerving sound because it's just like, but after a while you get used to it. Whenever it would rain, you would hear this weird pig squealy noise coming from my woods. And it was like a pig fighting with like a bat and a monkey with like death metal growls. I know it sounds so...
That's quite a description.
It sounds so weird. Like when rabbits scream, they have a terrifying scream if they're get attacked, but you know what that is if you know what it is. Same with badgers. They're very rare over here, but weasels, we do get them. They all have a very distinct sound. Again, like I said, my father's a hunter. I grew up in the woods. So like if I'm hearing a sound, I'll be like, oh, okay, this is an animal, or this is actually a nocturnal bird. This isn't anything weird. I don't know what this is, that sound, but it's always when it rains. And like after the rain, everything in the woods is so quiet after. There's no like animals rummaging. You don't see any skunks or raccoons because, again, we have dumpsters. They all kind of come out and party after hours, but when it rains, they don't come out, especially after that screaming.
Do you think the ones that you've seen over the years, or that your friends have seen, or whoever have seen that you know about, do you think it's the same creature? Do you think there's more than one?
I don't know, because some of their descriptions kind of vary a little bit. So, like one of my friends who's seen it on the bike path leaving my house, he's a military man, scared the crap out of him. He like ran to the bus stop and he's like, I'm not messing with that. He described it as a gorilla wearing like a ghillie suit. So I'm like, all right, does it do like hibernation? Because before, when I was like super into this, I was trying to file migration paths and everything to see what its food source was, where it's coming in, if there's like families of it, if there's breeding grounds, everything like that, because I became obsessed with this thing. So I'm like, all right, I know this is real now. I've seen it. Like, this is a real thing. Call me crazy. I will find it. I won't hurt it, but I will find it and show it to you. But kind of look exactly the same with no differences in like height or weight appearance. It's weird, you know? Because if you figure more than one, they would slightly differ, like, you know, how like humans do and other animals do.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But I don't know.
How tall do you think this thing was?
We ran an experiment. My founder of my paranormal group, Eric, is 6 feet. I'm pretty sure exactly. And so is Corey Heisen. So they went out and they stood next to the car as I was, you know, going from the window, and have them stand in the same exact spot. And with them standing as tall as they were about the height as the thing as it was crouching. So with it crouching, like doing like this, they were like at that same height.
So probably another foot and a half at least when it stood straight up.
Yeah, because it had big, long legs. They were thick, but they were still long.
What would you classify this thing as? Would you classify it as more dog-looking, more Bigfoot, more bear-looking, more human-looking? A lot of people, when they see these things, they pretty much come out and say, you know what, I just think it looked like a werewolf. If people describe what a werewolf looks like, that's what I say it looked like. What do you think it looked like?
Well, to me, again, first thought when I saw it the first time was like, it's a werewolf. It's not even a full moon. But it's got funky characteristics that are very human-like. Like the whole hand gesture thing. Weird. And the surveying of its surroundings. When we pulled around the rotary that time with the car, as soon as it saw the headlights, it didn't jump back like a scared animal to get out of the way. It kind of like stood up. You know, so I don't know. It's like, it's very canine at the same time that it feels like it has like half a human brain, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, you said you're on some Native American land or around some Native American land.
Mm-hmm.
My first thought would be skinwalker, but those are mostly out west. I mean,
yeah.
I guess that's not unheard of to see them on the East Coast, but
You know what? That's a good
that would be
point.
my first thought.
What do you think these things are, Crystal? Where do you think they come from? Do you think they're a spiritual or alien-related kind of beast? Do you think they've been here for a long time? What's your whole thought pattern on this thing? If you had to put it together, what would you say?
Well, because I had gone down this skinwalker route too. And looking into the lore and everything, I'm like, okay, that doesn't fully fit. Looking into black shucks. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't really seem to fit with like all the stories that I'm getting in the land. I tried going through newspaper articles. I found one because I'm also on the very edge of the Bridgewater Triangle too. So I found one that took place in the Bridgewater Triangle. A black dog that police actually shot at. And the dog disappeared, basically. And again, police reports on it. So I'm kind of like, okay, that's very mystical, supernatural. But the only time I could say this thing actually disappeared was when it was next to the car, because there was no way for it to go anywhere. I have weird theories that I fight myself with about all the time. To me, it's very physical. It's real when it's here. You know what I mean? In the moment, it's there. It's terrifying. It's scary. But at the same time, it's so cool to look at because you're like, this isn't a Halloween costume. This is something real that's outside of our world right now. So it's like that terror awe moment. But you're very aware of how real it is. At the second time, it's like there's no way that this thing can be so real. So it's got to be some kind of fake thing. So I go back and forth. The weird heat signatures that we got, as well as the stuff that like happens in my woods. When Brian was doing his thermal, I think it was Brian. I wasn't with them for that section because we had split out into a search grid. Someone had said that he had gotten a heat signal, and it kind of looked like a portal. And he would point, and there would be nothing there. Like, you know, it was a chilly night. You know, it wasn't warm. It wasn't like residual heat or something like that had just gone by, touching the trees or any of them. Mm-hmm. And it would be like hot, cold, warm again, hot, cold. And it was like in this weird outline. And that's when they got like the weird eye shine pictures. My group has them. I don't have them because I didn't take them. But there was like eyes coming out of that area where like the portal looking thing was. So looking at it, I'm just kind of like, all right, this is too much for me to believe I'm a believer, but at the same time, I'm like, I need something to make sense to me for me to grasp it. But with me seeing it with my own eyes, it's like I can't deny it. So what's actually so far-fetched that I can't believe it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's the name of your paranormal group that you're in?
Oh, Rhode Island Paranormal.
Okay. For our listeners to go check out and see, check out your pictures too. Rhode Island Paranormal.
Our Dogman investigations are on there. One of my other members, I believe, reached out to you too. She has a video of one of her encounters.
Yeah,
shortly after my house.
Yeah, she passed you.
Really?
I think she passed our name on to you, and you went ahead and got a hold of us. So we appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah. What can you tell us about the Bridgewater Triangle? Do you know much about that?
Oh, I love the Bridgewater Triangle. So I love the history that comes with paranormal things, or even the unexplained, mystical, supernatural, whatever you want to call it. But the Bridgewater Triangle, for those who aren't familiar of it, is an area in Massachusetts that spans over multiple counties. There's lots of legends that go with it. A lot of it has to do with like Native American legends too, like thunderbirds are seen. There's police reports with that. There's UFO encounters. There's UFO abductions, again with police reports. Bigfoot encounters as well. Tons of Pukwudgie. Like lore and superstition. A lot of it is Native American based.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on over there in the Bridgewater Triangle. I watched a documentary on it, and it's just craziness that happens there. Alaska has their own triangle. You don't hear much about the Bermuda Triangle anymore. I'm not sure why, but it's just craziness. And it's hard to wrap your head around this stuff. But, you saw what you saw, and you believe what you believe, and a lot of people are seeing this as well. So we appreciate you coming on and telling us your stories and talking with us tonight, Crystal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's nice to talk about it, but at the same time, it's kind of like weird to talk about it at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's why we're here, though, to help you guys get it out in the open, and maybe somebody else can come forward.
Right. And, bring it out into the public consciousness and maybe get these things proven.
If you guys find anything else out there where you're at, or you end up getting some more pictures or whatever happens, you got to let us know.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, of course. I just set up my trail cam again. My last one got eaten by a bear, so I had to get it. Not on my property.
Are you sure it was a bear?
Oh, no, we got it on camera, so if you ever want to know what a bear looks like when it eats you, I can send you the video.
Okay.
So.
Well, sure.
Oh, nice.
We'll be sure to check out your Rhode Island Paranormal page, too, your group page, and see what you got on there.
Absolutely.
So thanks again for coming on and talking to us tonight.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. It was really nice meeting you guys.
You too. You too. Yep. You take care. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you have a good night.
Another Dogman episode in the books. What do you think about that one?
Man, that was even better than I thought it was going to be. Those were some really cool encounters.
Yeah, for her to run out in the parking lot to try to see what this thing was up close.
Yeah, with her little 4'10" ass. What did she think she was going to do?
She's brave, huh? She's not afraid of it. She's probably like,
no, she ain't.
She's probably like, I've had enough of this. Let's end this now. What the hell are you? So good for her, I guess. You know me, I'm terrified of these things.
Yes, I know.
It's a freaking werewolf, for God's sake. And
pretty much.
That was like my most scariest monster ever growing up. I'm glad you came on and talked to us.
Yeah, I'm glad she came on too. That was really good. So everybody else to go check out her paranormal group, Rhode Island Paranormal.
Yes, Rhode Island Paranormal.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. We'll check it out too if we're not already on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't know.
I don't know if we are or not. I don't think we are.
I don't think so either. So we'll be sure to check it out. And everyone, thanks for listening as always. If you want to come on the show and you've had an encounter, get a hold of us. info@cryptidcreatures.co. Facebook. We have a group on Facebook. Come join it. Check us out. Twitter, Reddit.
Absolutely.
Forget anywhere else? TikTok.
Instagram, TikTok.
I don't TikTok, but we're there, so we're not everywhere.
We are everywhere.
Yep. And as always, guys, we appreciate the listens and thanks, and tell your friends and family. Let's keep this growing. Brian, my
Absolutely.
friend.
Always fun, man. Always.
Always a good time. Till next time.
Yep. Right on. See